Well, good morning, and look at what a day this is here on Cape Cod. The sky is absolutely blue, 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 and the water behind me is nice and calm, and maybe that's going to suggest what happens in the markets today. Anyway, today is Friday, July 26, 2024, and here are the things that you need to know. Well, yesterday we learned that GDP informed us that the economy remains robust. Core PCE, the price index, quarter over quarter, reflects higher prices, though what's today's PCE year over year going to show? The VIX, it moved lower this morning, right? Futures are higher. Oil and gold churned in place, and bond prices advanced just a tiny bit. And what do we have for dinner tonight? We're having the short rib beef hamburgers. They are so delicious. Okay, look. The GDP comes in at plus 2.8%, well above the expectation of plus 2.1, and well above the first quarter read of plus 1.4%. And what that means is that consumers have ramped up their spending as incomes supposedly continue to rise. Business ramped up their CapEx spending, investing in more equipment, plants, buildings, and technology, all while the Core PCE Price Index quarter over quarter rose by 2.9%, above the expected 2.7%, even as they tell us inflation continues to cool. Now, just to be clear, the Core PCE Price Index measures the prices paid for goods and services without the volatile food and energy prices. It is considered a key indicator by the Fed as they gauge inflation and set monetary policy. It is supposed to measure the underlying inflation trends more accurately than the broader PCE Price Index. In any event, do not expect a change in the outlook by the Fed next week. They have made it very clear already that they're going to hold rates steady in July, but could cut rates in September if inflation continues to cool. They've essentially told us they're going to do that. In the end, this data point suggests that the economy remains robust enough to cut rates. Now, stocks rallied on this news until they didn't, right? At the closing bell, the Dow added only 81 points. The S&P lost 28. The NASDAQ fell by 160. The Russell gained 26. The transports added 195. And the equal-weighted S&P gained 8 points. Now, you see the difference between the two S&Ps? The S&P is a market cap weighted index, meaning that companies with larger market capitalizations have a greater impact on the performance of the index. Thus, the S&P was down 28 points, while the equal-weighted S&P was up 8 points. Now, the equal-weighted S&P gives every company an equal weight, thus removing the advantage of size. And so there you see it rose, suggesting that a small number of the mega-cap tech companies dragged the index down, while most of the remaining companies in the S&P advanced, leaving the equal-weighted index positive. And this continues to suggest a broadening out of investor investments, right? So far this year, sectors that were underperforming are now up double digits, led by utilities and financials, up 11 and 13% respectively. SMIDs, which are small and mid caps, are also up double digits, with the IWM up 11%. Then we got industrials, consumer staples, healthcare, and basic materials all up between 8 and 9%. And this suggests that the broadening out of investment is what everyone is talking about, right? Now, yesterday, economically sensitive stocks did advance. Financials up 0.4. Energy up 1.7%. Industrials up 0.8%. Basic materials up 0.3. SMIDs advanced as well, rising by 1.3%. All of the other sectors declined, led by tech and communications, both down 1.1%. Utilities fell by 0.8. Healthcare fell by 0.5%. Consumer discretionary by 0.4. Consumer staples by 0.1, and real estate fell by 0.5%. The VIX advanced by 2.3% yesterday, and that continued to put some pressure on the big boys, right? This morning, though, the VIX is down 5% as the tone feels a bit more relaxed. Now, eco data today includes personal income, which is expected to be up 0.4, personal spending expected to be up 0.3, and the all-important PCE Price Index, and that is expected to show an increase of 0.1% month over month and 2.4% year over year. Now, the Core Price Index is expected to be up 2% month over month and 2.5% year over year. Note, yesterday's Core PCE was the quarter over quarter read. Today's is the year over year read, right? Now, all those different time frames are only meant to confuse you, right? This way they can point to a data point that tells their story while ignoring the data point that doesn't, right? We're also going to get the University of Michigan sentiment surveys today. Now, earnings could continue. We're going to get Bristol Myers, Newell, T. Rowe, Colgate, Palmolive, and Triple M, along with a couple of others. U.S. futures are up this morning. Dow futures up 200. The S&P's up 40. NASDAQ up 185, and the Russell's up 35. This, as calm, appears to be restored for now, as traders and investors are clawing back some of the losses after the panic created by the algos earlier this week. But here again is my point. Having a plan is key, and taking advantage of the chaos created in the good names, as long as the thesis remains the same, is key as well. Oil remains in a tight range, $76 to $80. Gold is trading at $24.20 after testing $2,400 yesterday. That too remains in the $2,400 to $2,500 trading range. Bonds advanced yesterday. The TLT was up to 0.8%, the TLH up 0.5%, and the AGG up 0.3. 2-year yields are now 4.42%, and 10-year yields are 4.24%. European markets are mostly higher. Spain is down 0.2, while France is leading the pack up 0.9. The sense of calm across the zone is causing long-term buyers to be a bit more aggressive, trying to scoop up stock at a discount. Stocks will get punished for no real reason other than the panic caused by the algorithms. The S&P closed yesterday at 53.99, down 28 points. The trend line, which was at 54.28, failed to hold. And while futures are pointing up today, do not be surprised if we test lower again in the weeks ahead. A test and a fail of the trend line again will cause markets to test the 5250, 5300 trading range. I said we needed to test that trend line support, and we did. But now let's see what happens next. Remember, we're entering that seasonally weak time of the year, August through October. So prepare yourself for more volatility ahead. If you have more cash to put to work, well, right now you could sit tight. No need to rush. Leave it in your money market fund that's earning about 5%. All good, right? Now don't forget, we're in the blackout period for the Fed. The FOMC meeting is next week, Tuesday and Wednesday. The announcement is due out Wednesday at 2 p.m. While no rate change is expected, investors are going to be listening to what JJ says about the future. Currently, the market is pricing in at least 2 cuts and maybe even 3. And in politics, Barack and Michelle joined Bill and Hillary in throwing their weight and support behind Cammie. Right? This is really now heating up. Grab the popcorn. This is going to be very interesting to watch. Now, from an investment perspective, continue to focus on the long game, right? Remember, having a plan and staying focused is always the key for a long-term investor. Give me a call to discuss, because I'm always happy to help you plan it out. Okay, so what do we have for dinner tonight? Well, it's a summertime, it's Friday, maybe it's Saturday, whatever, the weekend. You really need to have the short rib burgers, especially if it's going to be a gorgeous sunny weekend, right? Now, short rib burgers are a bit of work, but if you have the time and you really want to impress somebody with a nice cheeseburger, you got to go for this. Now, you refer back to the short rib recipe that I gave you, and I'll tell you that in a minute. You're going to make a half a dozen ribs the night before. You're going to cool them and then shred the meat off the bone. Now, when you're ready, bring the shredded meat up to room temperature and then mix it with the ground chuck you're going to use, right? Now, use ground chuck. Don't use lean because it tastes like cardboard, right? You want it to have some of the fat, which gives it some even better flavor. Season it with salt and pepper, and then form the burgers, right? Light the grill, let it get nice and hot, and then you're going to cook the burgers. Top them with sauteed onions, Monterey Jack, to complete the burger. Now, while the burger's cooking, you're going to take the brioche buns, because you're using brioche buns, you're going to butter them and toast them either on the grill or in a frying pan, right? Then place the cooked burger on the bun with fresh lettuce and the sauteed onions. Mayo and ketchup on the side, outstanding. Okay, really quick for the braised short ribs, here's what you need to do. You're going to begin with 6 or 8 beef short ribs, season them with salt and pepper, and then brown them in a frying pan with a bit of olive oil. Make sure that you brown them on all sides, being careful not to burn the meat, right? After you brown them, place them in a large, deep baking pan. An aluminum pan is fine. Deep aluminum pan is fine. Lining them up on their sides. Next, chop up 2 large white Spanish onions, a bunch of celery, and a bag of carrots. Smash 4 or 5 garlic cloves and add that all to the meat, making sure that you disperse the garlic all around. Next, add the chopped veggies right on top. In the frying pan that you use to actually brown the short ribs, you're going to add 1 can of beef broth, 1 can of tomato paste, a 1/4 cup to a 1/2 cup of red wine, your choice. Mix it well, let the broth come to a boil for a couple of minutes, and let the alcohol steam away from the wine. Once you're done there, you're going to bathe the short ribs in this mixture of wine and broth and cover it really tightly, right? You want to place the baking dish in the oven. You preheated the oven to 350 degrees. Cover it really tight with aluminum foil and let them cook in there for 4 hours or so, right? Tightly covered. After that, remove them, let them rest for 15 minutes or so, and they're done. Now you can eat them just that way if you want the short ribs, but if you want to make the short rib burgers, then just take them out, shred the meat, put it away, and wait until you're ready to make the burgers. Until Monday, have a great weekend. We'll see you then.